We did the entire Sandman saga a few months ago, and you showed us some real love there, so we thought why not bring to you Sandman Overture, the prequel to Sandman Saga that tells us about the events that occurred before the start of the first series. It is artistically unbelievable, and maybe this time we will meet the Endless's parents. So without further ado, let's get started. Oh, and before I begin, if you like the video, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those two small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos. And now let's begin. Sandman Overture. Chapter number 1, A Flower Burn. The issue starts by introducing us to a faraway planet inhabited by humanoids covered in red fur. It's a star system with 6 planets, and 4 of them are gas giants. The planet in question used to have 3 continents, 1 archipelago, and 2 thin ice caps. Apart from the humanoids on its surface, the planet was also home to small, mindless, insect-like creatures that would randomly swarm to form huge structures and explore the solar system, only to then randomly give up and go about their own ways until the next swarming was triggered. These are 2 of the 3 races that inhabited this planet, for the third one is the one that Dream cared about the most. The southern continent of the planet was inhabited by a species of carnivorous plants that, despite their limited mobility, had beautiful minds. And among these plants was the one named Coran, and Coran was special because he dreamed. We then see Coran peacefully sleeping, as this time, his dream shows him something that will haunt him for the rest of his life. He dreams of someone from his kind who looks completely different, a plant with a white flower with a tall stem and dark, resplendent leaves. Coran imagines himself being uprooted from the ground and slowly being drawn into this white flower, while his new mysterious friend claims that there is something wrong in the world, something has fractured. Coran doesn't understand these words, but the stranger does his best to explain things to him nonetheless. The white flower says that he has been traveling through the dreams of plants on this planet for far too long. He has found nothing wrong with them or their dreams, but now he senses that there's something wrong. Very wrong. More wrong than anything he has encountered in the past. Coran involuntarily unfurls his petals and bows out of respect in front of the white flower, completely oblivious to the fact that his body is reacting this way while the white flower continues his rambling. The white flower is now no longer talking to Coran but to himself. He refuses to permit something that is currently happening, something that is hurting him, something that is waking up, and something that is completely damaged. And though he doesn't like this feeling, the white flower is quite curious to discover the cause of it. And then Coran begins to tremble because the white flower begins to scream and howl. Coran watches the flower that once commanded his involuntary reverie go up in flames in his dream as his screams wiggle through Coran's brain like nasty, gnawing worms. Coran knows this is fire, despite having never seen one in his life. He has heard of it in tales sung by roots, pollen, and scent. He knows this is fire because he sees it in his dreaming mind. He feels it, and he feels the burning. Coran knows that this is death. Coran knows someone has died screaming, and as he wakes up from his slumber, Coran can't help but wonder who that was. The one that was erased. We then travel to London, 1915, where in an inconspicuous office, Ian Stewart toils away his day, which is suddenly interrupted by the Corinthian. When the Corinthian shows up and says that he has been waiting too long to find Ian, and that he has business with him, it doesn't surprise Ian a bit. Ian assumes that Corinthian is someone from the army bringing him news about his brother, and Corinthian doesn't correct him. He says that he will be waiting for Ian outside when he gets off work. They will be meeting at the Dirty Donkey pub across the street, and when Corinthian comes closer, Ian inquires about his eyes. He assumes that the Corinthian was hurt in a gas attack, and once again, the nightmare decides not to correct Ian. Instead, he cryptically says that Ian will learn all about the Corinthian's eyes very soon. We then see the same words written on an old piece of paper, and soon it is revealed that this page is from the Book of Destiny, and as our perspective changes, so does Destiny's perspective in his book. He reads about himself, reads how he is currently walking in his gallery, reading the Book of Souls, and he then reads that Destiny calls upon his sister, Death, for some reason. Destiny follows through with what he's supposed to do, and Death instantly appears from her portrait in the gallery. Destiny doesn't know why he is called Death, but she knows. She teases him that he could continue reading to find out, knowing too well that her brother doesn't interfere with fate like that. She then reveals that Destiny read about him calling her because Death wanted him to. She wanted to see him. We then see Destiny question his sister, only to learn that she is here to ask for his advice. Death is worried, worried because she just took one of Dream's million personas from a planet 100 galaxies away. Whenever one of them dies, it means trouble, and the death of Dream's recent persona has her worried. This persona is the white flower we saw bursting into flames at the start of this issue. Death is worried enough to not only ask Destiny if she should warn their brother about the death, but she also implores him to peek ahead in his book to learn the future so that they can prevent any mishaps. Destiny denies her request and reassures her that they will be in the future soon enough. Death sighs and apologizes to Destiny for trying to make him go against his nature. She then solemnly says that Dream will find out soon what this means, and then feels sorry for her brother. We are now introduced to George Portcullis, a man who has the same peculiar dream every month. There are a lot of peculiarities about this dream, the most prominent of which is his name. When he is not dreaming, he is definitely not George Portcullis. He doesn't even remember who he is in the waking world. He could be a working man, a woman, or maybe even a butterfly. However, in this dream, another particular peculiarity is that George always manages an office, the same office in London, where he is always unsure who his master is supposed to be. That has never been a problem though, because his master has never shown up to claim ownership, but that doesn't mean George hasn't been doing his duties diligently. He maintains the office and ensures it's neat and tidy whenever he is in the dream. However, today, when he waters the plants and brews his tea, something changes. A tall man in a top hat appears in the street outside and walks into the office. If you hadn't noticed, George doesn't have a face. He has bars, prison bars for a face instead. George's thoughts then tell us more about the office, and we learn that it is never in the same place twice. Once it was deep inside the Bank of England, once in the Dome of St. Paul's, once in Buckingham Palace, and once in a gentleman's club. Whatever the location is, however, it's always in London. Today, it's in Stopcock Yard, a place George is sure was demolished around 15 years ago. As George sits at the front desk, the narrator ominously reveals to us that George always takes over the office in the dream from a burning visage who always seems to be caring for it in George's absence. As he sips his tea, he watches the man in the top hat walk into the office, and he tells him the same thing he tells everyone. "I'm sorry, sir, you may not enter. The master is not here." However, this is when Dream reveals that George is wrong, because he is finally here in his office. Dream removes his top hat and reveals that he had almost forgotten about his London office. He then takes a seat in his chair and orders George that he is about to have a visitor, and when the person arrives, George is to bring him in. We then see Corinthian heading into the Dirty Donkey to meet up with Ian, but when he opens the front door, the world of dreaming melts away, and he instead finds himself in Dream's London office. George welcomes him, but Corinthian is surprised and confused by this sudden shift in scenery. George simply ignores Corinthian's questions and instead leads him to his master. When Corinthian comes face to face with his master, we see that he removes his sunglasses, instantly revealing his other two mouths that sit where his eyes should be. Despite this horrific visual, Corinthian still refers to Dream as Lord because he knows he has no power here. Dream asks Corinthian if he remembers his creation, and Corinthian reveals that he remembers waking up for the first time. Dream then melancholically ponders the act of creating, how whenever someone creates something, they have high hopes for it. Just like Dream had high hopes for Corinthian. He created Corinthian, the nightmare, to reflect humanity. A nightmare that would show humanity what it truly was, show it every aspect of its being that humanity refused to acknowledge in the waking. Corinthian interrupts Dream and says that he did his best, but this is when his lord corrects him and says that Corinthian did the absolute worst. And in so many ways, that was exactly what was expected of him. However, there are some rules that were set before time, set when all of this was nothing but a void. And one of these rules is the boundary between the dreaming and the waking. This is when Corinthian asks if Dream made these rules, and Dream finds this question to be odd. Nonetheless, he answers and tells Corinthian that the rules were made by the Council of the First Circle and that he has always admired them because rules are important. Dream's face then changes with the shadows. He becomes more stern and then reveals that his creations are meant to remain in dreaming. His creations are to affect sleepers and dreamers. They aren't supposed to cross into the waking, and they definitely aren't supposed to kill mortals in the waking for pleasure. This is when Corinthian snarls and says, "So I can command and inspire poor Gilles de Rais in his nightmares? I just can't pick up a razor and have fun with the tiny tots myself." And this reveals that it was the Corinthian who inspired Gilles de Rais to kill all those children in the 1400s. Corinthian then quickly realizes why he's here, why his master is here, and not confronting him in the castle instead. It's because Dream wants to keep Corinthian isolated. He wants to keep him away from his other subjects. And Corinthian suspects that's because he doesn't want the other creations knowing that they are unstoppable in the waking. They cannot be harmed when in the waking, and that gives them the freedom to exist however they want and the power to take whatever they wish. This is when Dream coldly turns towards Corinthian and corrects him. He doesn't want to isolate him to prevent his thoughts from infecting his other creations. No, Dream has brought the Corinthian here to spare his friends the pain of seeing their master decreate him on the spot. Corinthian shivers, demands a trial, but Dream coldly reveals that he is the only judge, jury, and executioner Corinthian has, and he has already decided. Corinthian accepts his fate, places his knives on the dresser nearby, and stares at George before his ultimate demise. However, before Dream can pull the trigger, his red ruby begins to glow, and Dream instantly snarls and says, "No!" He quickly puts on his coat and grabs his hat while Corinthian demands a trial for his actions in front of his peers. However, this is when Dream opens a doorway to the dreaming and tells Corinthian that the trial will have to wait until he returns. He then bids George goodbye and walks through the door. Corinthian snarls and picks up his knives, and when George questions what both of them are supposed to do, Corinthian reveals that he doesn't care about George, but he knows what he's going to do. Corinthian plans to go back to the waking, kill Ian in a back alley, and then eat his eyeballs. And then Corinthian plans on running away. He is going to run until he has reshaped the world to look like himself. Unfortunately, doing what Dream intended him to do, however, this time in the waking world. He then turns to George and reveals that he can do as he pleases. We then see Dream hurtling towards his castle through the air as he reveals that he has been summoned across the universe, a call that he has never felt before, a call that he cannot resist. He can only fight it for a few minutes to ensure that he is prepared when he eventually answers it. We then see Mervyn Pumpkinhead casually chatting with Lucian in the library when a sudden explosion in the throne room announces Dream's arrival in the castle. Lucian rushes to attend to his master, and Mervyn's remarks reveal to us that going to the throne room uninvited means certain death for Dream's creations. When Lucian enters the room, he sees his master already getting ready for war. He is putting on his gloves and helm. Dream nonchalantly informs Lucian that he is answering an unknown call from across the universe, and for the first time since his creation. When Lucian questions his master and says, "You are coming back, aren't you, Lord?" And Dream finds this question to be odd. What does he mean? Of course, Dream is coming back. This is his castle. Dreaming is his world, of course. Dream is coming back. But before he can complete his sentence, Dream is instantly pulled away across light years in a wake of infinite flame, in a fraction of forever that to him feels like forever. His screams spiral just like him as he endures the pain, while reminding himself who he is and what he is. He is Dream, and endless, and he can face whatever awaits him on the other side of the universe. However, he isn't prepared for what his eyes see now that he has landed. Every aspect of Dream, every version, every persona from every planet across time and space now greets him. This is a gathering of dreams, and every dream is here. The robot version of him informs Dream that this is a gathering. His plant life version greets him. The cat version questions the delay in his arrival, while his other realmed being informs Dream that everyone needed to be here before the gathering began. There's also a koi version of Dream, as well as an ethereal one that informs him that they were meant to answer the call instantly because that's what their duty demands. Dream stares at them with a baffled expression, as seconds later, his helm vanishes into nothingness, and this surprises him even more. Sandman Overture. Chapter number 2, A Meeting's Taken. We start this issue in the present day, where Daniel is the new aspect of Dream after Morpheus's death. He is currently in the throne room, and after learning what is happening to Morpheus across time, Daniel knows that he needs to do what he already knew would need to be done today, and thus, he apologizes to Lucian as he prepares to leave. Lucian is beyond puzzled. He doesn't know where Dream is off to so abruptly, and his lord simply says that the time is crucial, a crucial time to go for a walk. Lucian doesn't understand existence like his master, and so he finds his behavior quite unprofessional. A planned delegation is here to pay homage to him. Among them is the Knight of the Clouds and Shadows, who is at the head of the company of Forgotten Trumps. This homage has been on Dream's calendar for quite some time now, but he doesn't understand. The call for this walk comes from across the barrier of time. Despite Lucian's protests, Dream vanishes into thin air, and we see him cut a sorry face in front of the delegation while offering them food. The delegation is a combination of 2D beings and a news-hungry chameleon. We then see Daniel catch up with Mad Hetty, who is asleep in a decrepit alley and startled by his appearance. Daniel greets her, and this puzzles Hetty, because though she knows Dream, she doesn't know Daniel. Daniel begins to walk away, and this is when Hetty begins to hound him with questions because he looks like someone she knew, but also like someone she knows that no longer exists. This is when Daniel turns to her and says, "I walked here, that's why I'm here. I am here because it was time. I am sorry if I startled you." Hetty continues to follow Daniel as he walks away, and seconds later, we see them arriving at a desolate mental institute that seems to have been taken over by fleshy organisms. The windows are screaming mouths, the walls are tentacles, while eyes unknown peer out of windows that are yet to be infected. Hetty somehow recognizes this place. She reveals that she has been here before and that she always knew getting away from where it all started would end up being impossible. Hetty thinks that these are alien. This abomination is alien, just like people claim on the TV, and Daniel is simply perplexed by her perspective on her own dream. Hetty then confirms that this is a recurring dream because she keeps coming back to this asylum again and again for some reason. This is when Daniel nods and confirms her suspicion because he knows that this dream was planted and orchestrated by the fates for Hetty for a single reason: guts, horrific faces, an organic mass line, each part of the building, as Daniel and Hetty walk through it. Hetty recounts how she was once housed in this asylum, how she was let go out of the blue once the asylum ran out of funding, and how Hetty was still the same. In fact, worse, once she was set free. Hetty didn't know who she was or what she was supposed to do. Her son was gone, her husband was dead, and her old home had been sold. Everyone treated her differently. Her neighbors stared at her, and everyone knew how she had spent half her life in the asylum. So when Hetty got the chance, she came back to the asylum. And though she was told that the asylum had been shut down, that it had been demolished, Hetty knew better. She knew the gates were open, and in her dreams, she was always able to walk through them. However, every time Hetty visited the asylum, it was empty. There were no doctors, no nurses, no keepers. There was nobody. All this time, Daniel and Hetty have been heading deeper into the asylum, and we see that the building is increasingly covered in high levels of horrific organic matter. Hetty is now confused by her memories as they reach the laundry room in the basement. She remembers sleeping here, creating a bed from leaves and scraps that she could find in the room. The problem is that she remembers eating too, eating to sustain herself. However, Hetty can't remember what she ate. She can't remember what kept her fed. Despite this, she has figured out that she always managed to escape and that this is a dream because after what happened in real life, she could only visit the asylum in her dreams. After all, she is 272 years old, and she has learned a few tricks over the years. However, with this realization comes the reckoning that Hetty is currently dreaming, and when she realizes this, she quickly turns around and questions Daniel. She knew there was something off about him. He looked too familiar, and this is when Daniel comes clean. He confesses that he is Dream and that the last time they met, he was someone else, and that Hetty referred to him as the Oneromancer. But these words make Hetty angry. They eat at her reality. Hetty gets in Daniel's face and blames him for lying because she knew Dream and she knows that he is not her Dream. He was snooty, pompous, but Daniel is nothing like that, which is why Hetty thinks that he might be related to Dream. He might be his brother or son. Daniel ignores her accusations and leans towards the tiny chest in the laundry room where Hetty used to store her stash. However, Hetty doesn't give up. She continues to question him. She even mentions the funeral she remembers dreaming about. Surely Dream is dead, and Daniel is supposedly the heir, aka son. But this is when Daniel coldly turns to her and says, "I am Dream of the Endless Henrietta. Here it is, where you hid it when they brought you here." This is when Daniel reaches behind the chest and pulls out a pocket watch. Their conversation reveals that Hetty stole this watch from someone in Seven Dials, London, before she was admitted to the asylum. The watch never worked, and Hetty hid it in the asylum, hoping that it would be valuable once she got out. As Daniel continues to hold the watch, it begins to distort and bend with gravity, while Hetty tells us that she couldn't sell it back then, which is why she figured it would be worth more decades later, even though it never worked. This is when Dream melancholically tells Hetty, "It goes, Henrietta. Time goes in so many ways. It runs. Sometimes it even flies." This is when the watch flies out of his hand and begins to bend and manipulate itself with the fabric of reality, and before it vanishes into nothingness, Dream tells Hetty that sometimes what time says to an individual is for time alone to fathom. He then thanks her for her help all those years ago and then vanishes into nothingness along with the watch. Hetty, however, is inconsolable. She needs answers. She needs to know what she did wrong. She blames herself for it all, for all the suffering and loss, and for the final time, she wakes up from the dream of the asylum in the alley she calls home while asking, "What did I do?" And thus we see that Daniel return to the dreaming outside his castle. For the keen-eyed readers, you can notice that, unlike Morpheus, Daniel has a green gem instead of a red one because that is the emerald dream bestowed upon Daniel before his demise in the original run. Upon his return, Daniel quickly gathers himself and then greets the delegation in the castle. He greets the Knight of Clouds and Shadows as well as the Forgotten Trumps and apologizes for being late. He is offering them what looks like an egg, and as the knight bows to him along with the rest of the delegation, they remind him that his transgressions are now in the past and that they do not matter. Meanwhile, back in 1915, all of the dreams are busy debating their sudden congregation in this desolate part of the universe. The first debate is of the fact whether they are an us or an I, and each dream has a different perspective on this branching of identity, albeit all of them agree that they're all part of the same entity, yet an individual of their own perspective. This is when the dream of cats intervenes in their philosophical debate and reminds them that their pronouns are of the least importance right now. They need to focus on where they are and why they have been brought here. Morpheus acknowledges that it is pointless to argue about their numbers because they clearly seem to be growing the more they debate about it, and this is when the dream of robots agrees with him and says that their numbers are simply irrational. Other aspects of Dream join the conversation. A female Dream who expresses her opinion by stating the fact that she agrees with Morpheus. However, that truly means that she agrees with herself, and agreeing with herself doesn't make this a dialogue, but truly a monologue. And this is when a few more dreams join in on the conversation, and the dialogue monologue once again takes a different tangent. This is when we see the dream of cats chime in once again and remind them all of what they need to focus on, where they are, and why they are here. The dream of cats says that they are experiencing a practical demonstration of what has until now been hypothetical. Morpheus, however, is having an existential crisis. After experiencing all his personas and how they think and act, he is realizing that he has been a bit pompous, self-satisfied, and irritating all his life. He thinks this to himself out loud, and the other dreams simply state the facts for him. They simply say that this is how they all have always been. After this realization, it is easier for the dreams to discuss their sudden congregation, which they all agree is because one of them has inexplicably died. They are here because the dream that is dead was unable to ensure an orderly transfer to another aspect, which is why they all are here. They are all temporarily filling the void in the dead dream's absence. They all then turn towards Morpheus and reveal that they had arrived at this conclusion long ago. They were simply waiting for him to arrive so that they all could collectively pool their understanding and move forward towards a solution. However, as the Stone Crusader dream says this, aspects, perspectives, and personas around him begin vanishing into thin air. Morpheus notices this and states the obvious. Their numbers have suddenly started dwindling as they uncover the truth. The robot dream from the distant future states that this is unsurprising. After all, there is only one dream, and their multiplicity of identity is merely due to the way 3D space and time work. This place is a notional transient, which means it's neither real nor unreal. Morpheus is at his wit's end, and this is when a Lovecraftian aspect of himself enters the conversation and reveals to all the futures of himself what he still remembers, their past. Morpheus remembers this aspect of himself, and his Lovecraftian aspect continues to talk. We see him exponentially grow in size until it has engulfed the perceivable horizon. This is the dream of the first creations. Creations that sleep in the space beneath space. Those creations still exist, still sleep in the space beyond space, in the cracks of the real, which is why he is still needed, which is why he remains. He now grants them the power to ask him what they need to know, and all dreams, including Morpheus, burst out into a cacophony of questions. A dream has died. What caused this? Nothing like this has ever happened before. What killed it? What summoned us here? Where is here? The Lovecraftian dream would smile if it had a mouth, for the answer to all their questions is something that Dream has known for some time now. The universe has lived for too long now, and now it's time for it to end. This is when the female Dream says that the Lovecraftian aspect has grown old, but he retorts that they all are old. Dreams are old, and the others have simply forgotten how old they are. The Lovecraftian Dream then begins speaking in riddles and says, "You have forgotten how old you are, and it is a gift of time. I was there at the beginning. I have not yet forgotten. I tell you as I tell myself. It is in the darkness. It has waited in the darkness for long, too long, and now it wakes." The Stone Age Dream doesn't understand these riddles, but this is when all of them notice that the Lovecraftian Dream has begun to dissipate, maybe because he has spoken too much. But before he vanishes, he manages to say, "I talk of laws. There are always laws, the laws on which the universe runs, the law of conservation of reality. We are the heirs of night and time. Where there are laws, there are those that must." However, before the sentence is completed, the Lovecraftian Dream vanishes out of existence. Morpheus, though, seems to have understood the incomplete message. All the dreams now understand that each of them is experiencing their own individual perspective, which is why slowly the other dreams are vanishing out of existence. This, in turn, would mean that each of them knows what they are supposed to do across time. They were all there when these laws were set, which is why all of them know that this is a matter for the first circle. Morpheus is inspired by this entire ordeal. He toys with his ruby and vows to find out who or what killed him. He will go and do what needs to be done. He will go and speak to someone in a position of responsibility. This is when Dream summons Glory from the first circle, and surprisingly, the Cat of Dreams still exists in his perspective to witness this conversation. Glory is dazed by this sudden summoning, but not surprised. He calls Dream the Lord Shaper, and then begins to exchange pleasantries. However, Dream is in no mood for formalities. He quickly demands an explanation, and this seems to irk Glory. Glory reminds him why they follow courtesies, why the laws were established. first, and why he was looking forward to asking him about his family. We then see Dream's perspective and persona change in this ethereal realm across time as he informs Glory that his family is as good as ever, and that he would like to get on with the conversation. Glory ponders for a bit and then says, "Very well, Dream. There are 400 billion cells in the human brain, and all it takes is one of them to misfire to set off the other cells, which ultimately creates cancer." Glory goes on to explain the dichotomy of this occurrence and how this event, this cancer, is not because of the malfunctioning cell, but the very organism itself. Dream, this time a humanoid bat, doesn't see why this analogy is relevant, and this is when Glory puts him in his place by saying that he should wait for him to finish if Dream doesn't understand the point of this. "A star has gone mad, Lord Shaper. It is as simple as that." He then explains that just like the brain, there are 400 galaxies in the world, and a single star has gone mad, and its madness is spreading like cancer. He reveals that armies across the universe are amassing to combat this madness, and creatures from beyond the darkness are preparing to feast on the coming madness. A war is in the making, and this war will only ensure the spread of madness across the galaxies. Glory reveals that this is inevitable, and eventually the mind that is the universe will cease to exist, and all the things in it will cease to be. But Dream doesn't understand the point of this analogy or this conversation for that matter. He is of the endless. He is Dream. And this madness or destruction doesn't concern him. Stars constantly flare and fall, people continuously dream and stop when they die. So why should he care? He has responsibilities as the Lord of Dreams. And this is when Glory removes his glasses and wipes them, clearly hurt by Dream's indifference. Dream still doesn't understand why he needs to be here. And this is when Glory says, "You are here because a child lived and died a long time ago." And these words plunge Dream into a realm of regret he had hoped would never find him. He realizes that what started long ago isn't over yet, seemingly referencing the dream vortex that preceded Rosewalker. We are then introduced to one of the key players of this arc, a voluptuous woman carved out of eternal darkness and galaxy. Her existence is described as a song without words, a slow, mournful song of forgetting and regret. She dips herself in the pool beneath the unblinking stars and bathes in darkness, and this is when one of her aides comes and informs her that a war is on the horizon. The woman is unfazed because there is always war in the universe. Her aide informs her that, according to her sources, hosts are gathering from all across creation. The time of worlds is drawing to a close, and the darkness shall once again return. The woman appears to coalesce with the universe around her as she informs her aide that all of this once used to belong to her, and in time, it will belong to her once again. We then see that she is expecting someone to contact her, someone who hasn't contacted her yet, which she had expected. Her words tell us that whoever this someone is quite important to her, and they both still hold grudges against her. She then dips back in the pool and wordlessly begins to sing again, and as she stares at the universe above, a star flares and vanishes into the vastness of space. The woman smiles because, to her, this is better than nothing. We then see Morpheus creating a door out of thin air, and his words tell us that he saved the last vortex could have caused this. Saving the girl was a mistake because in its wake, the event has caused too many deaths and too much pain. Dream was under the impression that he had fixed that mistake, but clearly he was wrong. And so now he is going to do what needs to be done, even if it means the end of everything. He will go to the place where the endless aren't supposed to go, and he will do what needs to be done alone. However, after this declaration, when Morpheus walks through the door he created, the dream of the cats quickly follows through before the doorway vanishes. The dream of cats doesn't like being told what to do, not even by the universe, which is why he's here. Morpheus is curious as to why the dream of cats is still here, if they are supposed to be the same entity from two different standpoints, because if they are, then why can he still talk to the dream of cats? Morpheus now walks in silence as the dream of cats suggests that he is still here, because maybe Morpheus needs some company after all. They are going to see their father, and both of them wonder whether he'd be pleased to see them or not. Sandman Overture, chapter number 3, A Child Learns. Our narrator starts the story by telling us that this is the worst of times. This was the worst of times, and this will be the worst of times. The impending destruction of the universe has attracted beings from across the universe. Some travel faster than light, some faster than thought, and some faster than the void itself. There are those who travel here to the destruction impelled by prophecy. Some began their journey in the early age of the universe and traveled here frozen. Some are here to take part in the impending battle, and some are here to observe it. There are wave riders and planet eaters, ships, and warriors who are worlds themselves. We then get a beautifully haunting shot of this part of the space, which is followed by introductions to species, beings, and aliens that are going to join the destruction. We are introduced to the monks of Claw, a species that believes that existence is a distraction in the mind of God. As God meditates to clear its mind, it ushers in the destruction of the universe. The monks of Claw thus wish to remove all that is from existence, molecule by molecule, in order to allow God to move on to the next state of being divine. Then there is Jury Resplendent, who has come to fight for existence. Their leader is a huge cancerous tumor that has been alive for hundreds of millions of years, transmissible, unstoppable in pain, as huge as a city, and the most successful genetic form in this region of the universe. The warriors of Thrawn are also rushing to battle on their birds. They reach the scene of the crime within seconds. The Trollocs, shadowy, translucent, beautiful aliens, also arrive to join the fight. Others have either sent their armies or their ambassadors. For example, there is an army of metallic beetles that appear out of nowhere and hang in space waiting for something. This army has come to take part in the destruction of the universe, and they plan to make art from the wreckage. The Space K9 Patrol Corps, the Green Lantern Corps, and the Free Houses all send their representatives. However, they conclude that this is not a matter of justice and thus leave observers behind to document the event. Then there are huge fiery warriors that walk across space through clouds, while they are incorrectly interpreted by many to be unidentified electrical phenomena. They have come here to wait for the end of everything, but only a few know that the war has already begun. We then catch up with Morpheus and the Dream of Cats, who have arrived on the bridge to the City of Stars. In the distance is a huge, vast expanse of desolate land and rock, while their current surroundings are lush green and full of life. If you notice, as Dream steps into the realm, he loses his shoes, which are quickly replaced by old leather ones to match this realm. We then see that his outfit has also changed, as he is now in an old western suit, and as the Dream of Cats follows him, they both discuss how they would both prefer to make this journey alone. In the distance are the three kindly ones, this time appearing in era-appropriate attire. Cynthia informs them that the Dream Lord is coming. However, when she tells them about the cat accompanying him, both Mildred and Mordred are surprised. This puzzles Cynthia because Mildred is the weaver of fates. She should already know about the cat. However, this is when Mildred explains that she only weaves the threads that Cynthia brings her. The three kindly ones want a gift from Dream, and they hope that the gift will be the cat. Morpheus meets with them nonchalantly and greets them as if they were supposed to be there. The three kindly ones quickly get to the point and offer Dream information in exchange for a gift. During this negotiation, they drop hints about information in order to entice Dream. However, he already knows whatever they reveal. He already knows that he needs to deal with a star who is going insane. He knows that he is headed to the City of Stars and that to reach it, he will have to go through time and night. When they ask for the cat as a gift, Dream informs them that the cat is not his to gift. As a desperate last attempt, Mordred warns Dream that his current path directly or indirectly leads to his death, but even this doesn't faze Dream. He knows that every path he walks eventually leads to his death. He thanks the ladies for their kindness and takes his leave, and this baffles the three of them. They weren't kind to him, for if they were, they would have told Dream to not look under the bed. However, Morpheus and the Dream of Cats are too far to pick up on these words. As they continue walking, Dream explains to the Dream of Cats why he wasn't his to give away because the Dream of Cats belongs to himself. He reveals that this bridge leads to the City of Stars, the city where all the stars gather. The madness of a star killed one of them, and so the city is where they will find answers. He then reveals that time is of the essence and that this part of creation is fragile. However, this is when they are interrupted by two green aliens who think that they can bully the Lord of Dream, clearly unaware of who he is. They order Dream to walk towards them so that they can get a better look at him. However, when Dream doesn't stop when he is told to, they fire their guns at him. The shots bounce off his body harmlessly, and Dream, in retaliation, pulls out grains of sand and curses the two aliens for a life of nightmares. The Dream of Cats then fetches Dream because it has found a dead blue alien inside the house nearby, whom they were likely using for food. This is when Morpheus notices someone hiding under the bed, and when he bends down to get a better look, he finds a little blue alien girl who is refusing to come out. Dream assures her that the killers of her father are asleep, and their sleep is worse than death, which reassures her. She comes out, and Dream quietly offers to erase the memory of her father's murder to spare her the pain. However, the little girl is resolute. She doesn't want to forget. She never wants to forget. She is channeling her pain, and this is when she asks Dream's help to bury her father's body. The two aspects of the Lord of Dreams comply, and once her father is buried, the girl questions the end of the universe. The green aliens decided to go on a rampage because they wanted to go out with a bang, and this is when Dream coldly tells her that everything has to end. She then reveals that she thought that Dream was going to save them all. However, this is when, once again, he coldly tells her that he isn't here to save anyone. Morpheus then begins to walk away, but this is when the girl demands to join their party. Morpheus obviously refuses her request because she is fragile, but she insists insists on riding his cat with tears flowing down her face. They both reveal that they are Dream of the Endless, and the girl finds this name funny. This is when the Dream of Cats quietly offers a ride to her if she promises not to pull on her fur too much. As they continue their journey, the girl questions Dream. How can there be a city of stars? Aren't stars huge balls of flammable gas in space? Dream commends the little girl and tells her that her father was right. Stars are that, but they are also more. They are alive. Stars have minds, and sometimes those stars tend to wander. She then asks if real people like her, live in the city. And this is when the Dream of Cats says, and what kind of people would they be, young one? This is when the girl reveals that her name is Hope. Dream tells her that she will interpret the residents of the city as people. However, the city was and is created for stars. They use that place to communicate, to fight, and to have sexual relations. Hope naively questions what sexual relations are, and this shuts up the Lord of Dreams for good. Let's take a moment to appreciate this panel. This conversation has happened while the party covers a huge distance on the bridge, which is being held up by a huge green giant who is standing on the flames of the universe. The giant is straining to hold up the bridge and is having to use his leg to support it. The party has stopped for the night. They have started a fire, and Hope is writing a letter to her father telling him all about Dream and the Dream of Cats while being completely aware that he won't ever be able to read the letter. She tells him how they travel great lengths while only walking. Without hastening towards their destination, they likely travel 1,000 miles instantly. They stop at night to sleep and roast cactus to feed on. This is when one of their nights is interrupted by a huge swarm of mechanical beetles. Dream warns Hope that she shouldn't harm the tiniest of them because it could be seen as an act of aggression, while being completely oblivious to the fact that Hope finds the beetles quite beautiful. The swarm confronts Morpheus, and as it coalesces into a horrifying face, it warns the Lord of Dreams to not step any further. The swarm wants the universe to die so that a more beautiful and perfect one can replace it. They have art to make, and they will be the creators of the new universe. Politely, Dream denies their request and states that he is going to continue on his path because their threats mean nothing to him. Big Dream has already begun. You are all alone. You cannot stop it, screams the swarm, and this is when Morpheus calmly states that he isn't alone. He has a large cat and a small girl by his side. He also warns the swarm, the big dream, or as you call it, happened once long ago as well. I ended it then, and I won't let it happen again. The swarm begins to buzz with anger as it says, you cannot hurt our curators. They understand the world as you cannot. You are dealing with powerful forces that can do you harm, Dream Lord. This is when Morpheus's face transforms, and he turns into the Dream of the Beetles. After this transformation, he warns them that he died in flames only a few days ago, but even that didn't deter him. The swarm then threatens to kill Dream, right here and right now, and this is when Dream grabs his face and begins laughing like a maniac. However, this is a laugh only the Beetles understand. It's their language. To Hope, it sounds like the scratching of metal against the landslide of a mountain. It scares her, and it seems to scare the Beetles too. They quickly fly away and leave them alone, and this is when Hope realizes that there's more to Dream than meets the eye. She then demands to know his real name, and Dream tells her that he doesn't have a name here on the bridge yet. She can call him Dream. He is also known as the Prince of Stories, the Lord of the Sleeping Marches. However, before he can continue, Hope interrupts him and demands to hear his best story, a story that has a prince and a princess, because he is the Prince of Stories. Dream sighs and decides to tell Hope a story that he hasn't told anyone. Dream of Cats questions his choice. After all, they've hidden this story for a reason, but Morpheus is feeling melancholic. In his view, every story must be told at least once before the final nightfall. They are nearing the end of the bridge too, so this might be the perfect chance to tell that story, and Hope the perfect audience. He begins the story by telling Hope about the dreaming and how two gods escaped their homeland, captured Dream when he was young, and declared themselves the true lords of the dreaming. He was taken by surprise and was imprisoned in his own palace. He was unable to escape, and he was tortured by the screams of his dying subjects from beyond the walls of his cell. Dreams eventually resorted to asking his family for help. He scratched their sigils on the walls of his cell: a book, a heart, a ring, a flower, a sword, and an ankh. However, back then, they were all young and too proud, and so no one helped him. One by one, everyone denied his request until only two remained: Delight and Desire. Delight, unfortunately, couldn't help him because she is changing, and thus, there was only one that could help him: Desire. Desire answered his call, and seeing their brother desperate for help, they decided to play their own game. Desire offered Dream his own desire, a lover made of light, and before taking their leave, Desire warned Dream to do his best not to hurt her. This is when a woman made of light appeared before him, and Dream named her Alonora. He explained the world of dreaming to her, explained who he is, and how he is destined to love her. It was Desire's request, and he submitted to it. And so now Dream's heart, constancy, and love are Alionora's till the end of time. Alonora was swept off her feet, and when she touched the chains binding Dream to the cell, they dissolved away, and the walls around him vanished. Alonora was a being of pure light, and in her realm, it was the princesses who rescued the prince in the stories, and her rescue rescuing Dream in this moment is her own fairy tale coming true. Dream then reveals that they fought the two gods that had taken over the Dreaming side by side. This is how Alonora got her scar. One of the gods had a whip made of scorpions that ripped her face apart. Dream cut the creature from her face himself. He bound her damaged cheeks with dreams and then filled in the gaps with his love. He then fashioned the gates of horn and ivory from the bones of one of the gods and used the other's skull to fashion his helm that he still wears to war to this day. After that, time passed, and Dream loved Alonora the best he could. Hope then says that this is where her father ended all the stories, with the prince and the princess living happily ever after. Dream knows that there is no happily ever after for the Endless, and he hints this to Hope, and then quickly changes the topic to Hope's dreams. He learns that the child fears dreaming about her dead father, and instead wants a dream where her family is whole. Her mother, who died during childbirth, is still alive, and a world where everything, every being, is kind. Dream promises her the dream and puts her to sleep, and this is when the dream of cats confronts Morpheus because they both know that this isn't how the story ends. They both know they were cruel, and they both wonder if she ever thinks about them. In a flashback, we see that Alonora slowly lost her light in the dreaming, and this depressed her. Dream too became cold to her over the eons, and when she expresses that she wants to go back to her realm, he coldly tells her that she can leave. This breaks her heart. She reveals that she can't go back because, due to the lack of her light, she won't be accepted. She wants to get away from him, but in the dreaming, everything is him. Every rock, every blade of grass, so how can she get away from him? Dream offers to take her into the waking world, but Alonora reveals that this would completely destroy her. So Dream ultimately made Alonora her own personal world. He left her the rose quartz dreamstone to maintain her realm and told her that the Scary and Alonora will exist as long as the dreamstone does. Both the dreams in the present day know that Alonora gave a lot for both of them, and it is heinous that they never went back to see her ever again. Morpheus then stares at Hope as she sleeps soundly, and they both discuss that it is best that they go and talk to their father before she wakes up. However, it won't matter when they go or how long they talk to him. Morpheus knows this, and so does the Dream of Cats. Dream of Cats decides to stay behind and protect Hope. However, this is when Morpheus points ahead and shows Dream of Cats that it might already be too late because the stars are coming out. Dream stares ahead as the bridge leads into the city of stars, while 4 hurtling balls of flame quickly aim for him and his party. Sandman Overture. Chapter number 4, A Star's Forsaken. Dream's quest to find his father is finally coming to fruition, and it starts with him remembering the moment when Hope told him that she thought that he was here on the bridge to save everyone. But that memory soon turns into reality. Hope's eyes become real, the air suddenly feels a lot older than it did moments ago, and Dream begins to recount the events that eventually led to his birth. Before the beginning of everything, there was night, and that night was without boundaries, without any ends. Likewise, in the beginning was time, the relentless beat in which things could happen, in which everything could become, dust could coalesce, and matter could exist. As Dream remembers the beginning of creation, the world around him bends, the dust and soil of the bridge vanishes, the stars and galaxies mold themselves into abstract, colorful shapes, until eventually he is face to face with a 2D door which Dream promptly opens and walks through. In this moment, Dream knows there is nothing here, just this door and this courtyard and that echo of Hope saying, "I thought maybe you was here to save everybody." Time, his father is here, and so it has been bent. This meeting is taking place in the past, in the microseconds between Dream and Hope's conversation, which the present-day Dream is currently experiencing. Time itself is an amalgamating entity, a 2D depiction, 1 second, and then a 3D version of itself in the other. One moment he is a young kid, the other an old man, and randomly at times he is a teenager while simultaneously being middle-aged. His very aspect, text, and colors make him seem close to his 2 children, Destruction and Delirium. As Dream walks through his courtyard, he tries to remember their last meeting, the last time he met his father, the last time these forces of existence conversed. However, his father seems to bend Dream's memories. He can't remember if they parted on good terms or not. Perhaps that meeting never happened. Perhaps this is their first meeting. Perhaps the meeting he remembers is yet to happen. Or perhaps he is yet to walk away and part from his father on a bitter note. Dream then says, "This place exists in loops and whirls as he wishes it. I pass the fountain. Every drop of water hangs frozen in the air. Here, effect and cause reverse or disconnect entirely. Hello, father." Time, however, is indifferent. He merely states that Dream is once again here to ask something of him, just like his siblings, and though Dream tries to fight back, he ultimately loses the argument because, of course, time is right. Time is usually right, of course. Dream can come to visit his father with no motive and just to wish him well, but does he? Do the rest of the Endless? No, it is only Destiny who asks nothing of Time, and that is because Time gave him the Book of Destiny when he was born. Time gave Destiny all he had as his birthright. He is the only one who leaves Time alone, and he wishes he could have said the same about Dream and the rest of his siblings. Dream then ponders the fact that neither Hope nor the Dream of Cats were allowed into this realm, and when Time hears this, while going through different stages of his personified life, he remarks that Dream might be losing his mind. Now appearing as a very old man, Time turns to Dream and says, "What do you want, Dream?" And so Dream simply asks for his father's help, his help to solve this conundrum, to stop the end of existence. Time simply bites an apple as he tells Dream that the last time Dream asked for his help, he took the Seculum, an object that he promptly ended up losing. Dream says that Time should help him because he is his father, but Time outright refuses to help him. He says, "I gave you existence after all, and moments in which to exist." Dream tells his father that in these 2 microseconds where they currently exist, he has nothing to offer Time, nothing that would entice him to help his son. Everything will eventually be his with Time, and his father agrees. Dream can give his father nothing that he wants, which is why Time bluntly tells Dream that he will be leaving his realm this time empty-handed. Dream knew this was coming. His departure is here, but before he departs, Dream coldly turns to his father and says, "Have you spoken to Mother recently?" This question startles his father. Time instantly transitions between the ages of a young boy and a dashing young man as he ponders his son's departing statement. And before you know it, Time's realm is gone. Dream is back on the bridge and telling Hope that he isn't here to save anyone. In an instant, he snaps back to the present, where he and his party are on the edge of the City of Stars, and as they approach, a white star guarding the city approaches them. Dream warns Hope to act indifferent and not alarm the stars, and the little child can only wonder in bafflement as to how a mortal like her could even alarm a star. Dream introduces himself to the white star, defines Hope, and explains how the Dream of Cats is another aspect of him, but neither of these convinces the white star. After all, this is the city for stars, and neither of these is a star, so he denies them into the city. However, this is when Dream calls the star by his name and says, "Has it been so long since you dreamed, Fomalhaut?" And this startles Fomalhaut. He doesn't understand what is happening, and this is when Dream says that he has allowed Fomalhaut and the rest of the stars to walk his realm. He has offered them solace and warning and adventure there, and thus he should think twice before denying him entry into the city. Fomalhaut is stunned, however. He knows that he doesn't have the power to grant Dream entry into the city. He needs consensus. And this is when a red star shows up, who is quite hostile. The red star refuses them entry and tells them that they can't enter the city even if it is the end of everything. Dream of Cats walks up to him and tells him that it is indeed the end of existence that is on the precipice. But the foolishness of this interaction exhausts the Dream of Cats. He decides that he is going to have a nap while Hope and Dream do what needs to be done. This is when a green star shows up, and Morpheus recognizes this one. This is Sto-Oa, someone who stole one of his former lovers from him. Dream then threatens them by casually saying, "I am already here. All doors are dreams. Do you wish me to take the matter further? Because I will." This is when the stars decide to go over the matter in private, and Hope takes this moment of privacy to grab onto Dream's hand. She knows he's lonely, even if he won't accept it. The stars return moments later and say that they will allow Dream to enter the city to confer with the Mad Star. However, they refer to the Dream of Cats as the Beast of Dream Lord and Hope as the Dream Lord's servant. This is when Hope forgets what Dream had told her and tells the stars that she is no servant. She is Hope Beautiful Lost Nebula, and she ends up giving them her full name. Dream continues to descend the ethereal stairs while holding onto Hope's hand as he tells us that he is now questioning all of his choices. With each step, he is fearing the consequences. He knows this place is above the real. It exists in the far realms and in actuality, and he is currently descending into this place, going past the things that simultaneously are and aren't. He knows that if he makes a mistake here, then he is risking everything. He could die here, or worse, end up trapped in this realm. He knows that he hides his fear, but he knows that he's afraid. The stars and Morpheus's party reach a huge door that is being unlocked by one of the stars. This is the cell of the Mad Star, and only Dream can go inside. As the door opens, Dream says, "I have known madness before, the rank taste and the smell of it, the helplessness in the face of it. This is not my realm. The Mad Star is inconceivable, incomprehensible, but somehow when it speaks like a dream." When he sees Dream, he somehow recognizes him. The star calls Dream his friend, his good friend, and his brother. He begs Dream to help set it free. The star wants to escape his cell, and he wants to leave with Dream. Dream calmly tells the star that they are not friends. However, by the end of this conversation, he hopes that they will be. However, the star is mad. He is insane, which is why he thinks that Dream is refusing to recognize him as a brother, because he knows that the other stars are listening in on their conversation. The star then claims to be the creator of the universe, claims that he is the monarch of everything, and he he knows that together, Dream and he can kill them forever. Dream looks at the star with pity and offers to tell him a story, and the star gladly accepts. And so, Dream recounts the time he faced his first dream vortex, the time he was young, too naive and kind to do what needed to be done. Dream tells the star that his madness is his fault. Dream was too kind to kill the first dream vortex, which is why he's facing the consequences now. The vortex was a girl on an alien planet with humanoid felines. Dream knew she was a vortex, an anomaly, an amulet, something that would eventually break down the walls between dreaming minds. However, back then Dream was too kind to murder. He thought too highly of himself to commit such an act. He was curious. He wanted to know more about the vortex, and he wanted to know why she was such a huge threat to existence. So Dream spent time with her. She was a good, kind person, and the first night Dream delayed her end, the entire continent suffered, but Dream did nothing. The second night he spared her. Every being on her planet was locked in the same dream as her. Every animal, every microorganism, every living thing above the single-celled organism was sharing the same dream. But even now, Dream did not care. After all, through his eyes, this was just a single world that he was risking. And so on the third night, all the barriers were broken. The cells, the trees, the bacteria, the animals, the sea creatures, the mountains, they were all one, and they were all insane. Despite this, Dream hesitated. By now, the vortex, the girl had realized that she needed to die, and even though she begged for death, Dream couldn't see it through. This is when his sister, Death, was forced to show up. She had to remind him what was at stake, that Dream was at the risk of losing dreaming, but when Dream refused to kill, Death reminded him that everyone kills. They even kill their dreams. And it's high time Dream did what was asked of him 3 days ago. This is when Destruction showed up to help him fulfill his duties. He reminded Dream that if he didn't do it, then Destruction would have to come into his own one final time. Dream finally agreed to kill the vortex, and Death took this opportunity to remind him that because he didn't kill the girl, he will now have to end the star to destroy this entire system. However, Dream did not put out the sun. He only killed the vortex, and instead, he saved the sun and allowed it into the dreaming. This is the same sun, the same star that has now gone mad. However, this only bolsters the star's delusions. If Dream saved him once, then his purview is that they are meant to be together. Together, they will join and form a nebula. Dream, however, tells the star that he can now kill to protect the dreaming if he must. However, the star begins to ramble. His madness begins to grow exponentially, and to him, Dream is no longer his brother. In his purview, it's already too late for existence. And this is when all the stars from the city pounce on Dream, and he is baffled by this revelation. This is when the mad star reveals that this isn't his cell. This is the star's throne room. He is the monarch of the city, and this is when Dream realizes that he was already too late. The madness had already spread to all the stars by the time he reached here, and they all perceived the mad star to be their one true ruler. With his eyes twitching and his words screaming, the mad star orders the rest of them to take Dream because, according to him, Dream means to harm him. He does not know the glory of becoming and that he is not a part of the great dream. This is when Fomalhaut appears and informs Dream that all the stars have agreed to end it all in glory now, rather than to wait for the cold, bitter end intended for all of them in a few billion years from now. Dream calls this madness, and the mad star maniacally replies, "Yes, yes it is. Pure, perfect, madness." Fomalhaut then nonchalantly tells Dream that the dream of cats will be imprisoned in the menagerie, Hope will be deleted, but before he can say more, a crying Hope defies her intended end and tells Fomalhaut that she will not be deleted. Fomalhaut tells Hope that her life is over. She is nothing when compared to him or any of the stars, but this is when she resolutely says, "I'm not nothing. I'm Hope." And with this word, with Hope's name, time bends once again, and Dream's father pulls his son back into his realm. As if not realizing the consequences of doing so, Time casually asks Dream why he mentioned his mother and whether he had met her recently. However, Morpheus is furious. He was supposed to protect Hope, and she trusted him to keep her safe, but this interruption will prevent him from doing so. This interruption means that Hope will die. Time simply pulls a card out of thin air and says, "There is always a time in which she will have been alive. Always a time in which she does not exist. That is the nature of existence. I cannot think why nobody except me seems to think like that." Time has now conjured a table where he sits and lays down cards as Dream, and he discusses that only destiny can think like him. Dream then looks down and tells his father that he hasn't spoken to his mother, but if he wishes, he can speak to her. We then see the cards laid down by Time. They represent critical moments from Dream's life, and the card he currently holds shows the pocket watch recovered by Daniel from Mad Hetty. His father reveals that Time and Night haven't spoken to each other in quite a while now. However, he is now feeling better disposed towards Dream, and he is willing to help now that Dream has returned the Seculum to him. Dream, however, doesn't understand what his father is saying because the Dream that recovered the Seculum in the future isn't him, but Daniel. So without revealing the future to him, Time tells Dream to go see his mother and to tell her that Time was thinking of her. The words, "I am Hope," echo once again as Fomalhaut touches her forehead and disintegrates her into nothing. He recognizes the irony of this, considering the child's last words, and then the rest of the stars pounce on Dream. Fomalhaut knows that if they kill Dream, another Dream will simply take his place. They've tried this before. He learnt this at the Congress of Time. So instead, they will simply render Dream unavailable. They will trap him in the event horizon of a dark star from where nothing can get out, no light, no information, and definitely no dreams. With these words, Fomalhaut wishes Dream a good night and seemingly traps him forever in the event horizon. Sandman Overture. Chapter number 5, As Night Returns. We are now introduced to the dark that now surrounds Morpheus, the black that is now his prison, and the dark that, within moments, reminds him of the darkness of night. Time is dissolved in darkness, Dream is a child of time and night's darkness, and for now, he thinks that this place will prove to be his end. However, after what seemed like an eternity of pain and blackness, Dusk slowly pulls apart the fabric of reality to reveal herself. She suspects that this was part of his machinations. Dream had this planned all along, that Dusk and Night would come to his rescue when he was lost in the darkness of a black hole. Dusk informs Dream that she suspects this, and that he should expect nothing, and then tells him that his mother will be disappointed to see him. Dream coldly replies that she will eventually cope with it, and Dusk nods and agrees. She then pulls apart the fabric of darkness to reveal Night's realm, and Dream walks through to confront his mother. The next page shows us the war that is raging across the universe. The death toll has already hit an unimaginable number. Civilizations have been plunged into barbarism within hours. Worlds have been taken, saved, retaken, and then saved again until they are no longer habitable. There is war everywhere, senseless, bloody, and abrupt war. However, as time passes, a rumor begins to spread. The rumor of someone who moves among the injured, someone who brings comfort to the comfortless, someone who feeds the hungry, one who offers hope to the hopeless, and sometimes offers them an escape. Meanwhile, Dream confronts his mother, whose size and expression change with each reply. Dream tells her about his exile, how he was thrown into the event horizon of a dark star to trap him there for eternity, and Night quickly figures out that her son did this so he could come see her. She then smiles wickedly and says, "Risky plan, boy. I'm not like your father. I might keep you. How have you been? Behaving yourself? You never call?" Night then orders food and talks about the family with Dream, and it seems that she has her own delusions about them that she is refusing to let go of. She thinks Destiny is the best because he regularly visits her. She refuses to give love to Delirium, while always wondering why she lurks around her realm. Dream tells her about the love Delirium needs, but Night doesn't care. He tells her about Despair's recent change, but she doesn't care. He tells her that destruction has left, but she has a similar response. It is only when Dream mentions death that she remarks that the two of them are quite alike. She knows how to push buttons because this makes Dream very angry. He is adamant that he is nothing like Desire. Desire, according to him, is manipulative, selfish, and single-minded. Dream then quickly changes the subject and tells his mother that time misses her, and this sweeps her off her feet for a moment, but then she quickly breaks Dream's bubble by telling him that is not how Night and Time's dance works. It doesn't work like one of his stories. Time and Night won't reconcile, they won't form a union again, and it won't stabilize the universe, nor will it save existence. Reunions don't work that way. She then looks at Dream sternly and recounts his story. In the reunion of Time and Night, the mad stars will become sane, and peace and wisdom and joy and beauty will reign forever and there will be no more bad dreams. Dream knows that he has been rejected, and when Night adds salt to the wound by asking what he truly wants, Dream is at a loss for words. He is once again plunged into the darkness because he doesn't know what he should ask. We then head to Destiny's realm as the book's pages now focus on him. They tell us about Destiny, how he walks in his garden when he reads his book, and how he can never be surprised because the next thing to happen is always written in the book. However, this is when Destiny stops dead in his tracks because there is a huge ship in his garden, a ship that isn't his, and a ship that shouldn't be here according to the book. The book's next page shows 4 aliens on a desolate and destroyed planet that are preparing for another attack intended to wipe out everyone on the surface. All of them are about to consume berries of the Silver Lotus to avoid the impending, agonizing death. However, this is when the Dream of Cats shows up to rescue them all. We then see Night tempting Dream. She tempts him to stay in the darkness with her. She promises to craft him his own realm of dreaming, complete with his own new lover, which she for some reason depicts to be from the same alien race as Hope. Maybe Death doesn't understand love, but either way, Dream knows that he has responsibilities to uphold, even though existence itself may soon be coming to an end. And when she shows him a vision of the lover she thinks he wants, Dream politely declines the offer, and Night screams in rage. She throws Dream out of her realm and closes the tear in reality while condemning him for refusing her offer. Dream continues to plunge through darkness as it eats at his being and energy. He strains and suffers as his face becomes more and more gaunt, as energy is actively drained out of him. And this is when Destiny uses Dream's sigil from his gallery to summon him. Dream says a few times that this is not a good time and that he doesn't need Destiny's help, but when Destiny forces Dream, he has no choice but to follow through. through. He plops out of the black hole and onto Destiny's floor, almost completely drained of energy, and this is when we head to the afterlife of Hope's species, where the dream of cats is confronting her soul. Hope remembers her unfair death and pointless life, and this is when Dream of Cats offers her another chance to make a difference. He wants Hope to come with her, but Hope has been through a lot, and the afterlife seems like a safe space to exist, and moreover, she liked Morpheus more than the Dream of Cats. When the Dream of Cats says that Morpheus is gone, and he is the only one here now, Hope decides to come with him because, just like Morpheus, she knows that he is lonely too. Meanwhile, Dream is baffled when Destiny shows him the ship and blames him for it. The ship isn't supposed to be here. It isn't in his book, yet it is here, and everything about its creation reeks of Dream. Dream doesn't understand. He doesn't remember creating the ship, but when he gets close to it, something tells him that it is his creation, and as he walks on board, his clothes change into a more appropriate seafaring attire. He surveys the deck, and this is when the Dream of Cats shows up and reveals that he is the one who created this ship, which is why it feels so familiar to Morpheus. The Dream of Cats then reveals that he has been saving lives while Morpheus was visiting Mother. This ship is where all the saved people stay, and the Dream of Cats leads him to the decks below, where thousands of beings from different civilizations and species have been gathered. Because the ship is created from dreaming, the sense of space can bend, and Morpheus is baffled that the Dream of Cats managed to do all this behind his back. Sandman Overture, Chapter number 6, Old Worlds Awaken. This is it, folks. This is the last issue, so if you have any theories on how this saga is going to end, it's now time to drop your theories in the comments below. Let's continue. This issue starts with Hope's narration, who seems to have grown since she was taken out of the afterlife. Since leaving the afterlife, we learn that she has forgotten who she is. She has forgotten how she died, and this entire congregation of beings is quite strange to her. She then tells us about the space below decks where everyone stays. Sometimes it's a jungle, sometimes a theater, sometimes a banqueting place, sometimes a parliament. Despite belonging to different species, civilizations, and planets, everyone is able to converse with each other in this space, and all of them are friends. As Hope introduces us to some of the beings, we see Dream keeping a close eye on her like an estranged father from a distance as days pass by. Hope tells us that the waking world too is plagued by destruction. Nuclear weapons have been activated. Hope then tells us that she remembers the Dream of Cats, but not the man who has been following it around lately. But something tells Hope that she knew the man once, maybe even liked him. And so one day she confronts Dream. She wants to know who she is, why she's here, and why she can't leave. But Dream tells her that she is dead and that she agreed to do this, and thus she needs to be here. Hope resents him for this, and we see the toll all this destruction is taking on Death. In the grand dance of creation and destruction, of entropy and irony, the worlds are ending, and unfortunately, she is the only one there for all of them. We then see Dream of Cats and Dream discussing the final plan. The ship is damaged, but they can't back down now. They have 1,000 souls, and the Dream of Cats is here to remind Dream that he can save the world in another way. For once, the world belonged to cats until 1,000 humans had a dream that changed the nature of existence forever. He reminds Morpheus that it is the nature of dreams, and only dreams, to define reality. This is when Morpheus turns to the Dream of Cats and says that before they can continue, he needs to talk to his sister, Delirium. He draws her sigil in the mist and summons her. Delirium shows up and tells Dream about her new friends in her realm, the Mad Stars. Throughout the conversation, Delirium talks about stars and how she plays with them by transforming them into frogs, butterflies, and sometimes by feeding them piggables, vegetables cobbled together that look like a pig. Dream tells her about the impending destruction, and Delirium abruptly questions why Dream doesn't bring their brother back. Delirium then notices that he is deeply sad under his cold exterior, and this is when Dream reveals that he is going through with a suicide plan that might not save their existence and doom them all instead. And this is when Delirium confronts Dream and tells him that he doesn't care. He doesn't care that the worlds are dying. He doesn't care that the stars are raging across galaxies. He only cares that all of this is because of his mistake. Dream is left speechless, but he now knows why he wanted to meet his sister. And as the two of them part ways, Delirium drops another tiny bombshell on him by saying that the cat that has been with him all this while isn't even him. And so, as a drunk alien tries to give a sermon to his sparse audience, Dream enters the hall, finds Hope, and demands to talk with her. When she refuses, he tells her that her name used to be Hope. Hope lost beautiful Nebula. This convinces her, and when Dream reveals his plan to Hope, she is baffled. She can't believe it, and all of it feels like a dream. We catch up with them as Dream is trying to convince her that she has to be the one who explains to everyone on the ship what needs to be done. Their conversation also reveals that they have 1,000 souls, and they all need to believe in Dream. And while they are dreaming, Dream will be pulling the ship and the dreamers into reality without waking them or destroying them or the remnants of the universe. Dream looks sad, weary, and beaten up while Hope has too many questions. What happens when they wake up? Will they be together or back as they were before the destruction of the entire existence? What about Hope? Will she be dead, alive, existing? To stop Hope from spiraling, Dream begs her to do as she is told, and she promises to do it, but on one condition, that he will always remember her name. She then addresses the beings in the room, introduces herself, and then tells them their purpose. 1,000 of them have been gathered here for the single purpose of dreaming the universe as it was with a minor change, and that change will be the death of a star which should have happened long ago. She implores them to dream of a happy universe, a universe they remember, and not this one that they live in, and though many of them have questions, Hope simply tells them to have faith, and this is when Morpheus opens his pouch and uses most of his sands. And as his sands fill the entire ship, everyone in it falls asleep. Once everyone is asleep, Morpheus confronts Desire, who pretended to be the dream of cats until delirium revealed their identity. Dream questions this choice, and Desire casually says that they did this because they knew that Dream would never accept their help, or anyone's for that matter, unless he's the one offering help to himself. Desire reveals that this isn't the first time this has happened either. Desire watched from the sidelines for the first time, but Dream barely made it across the bridge before it was destroyed. And so, Desire stole Seculum from Dream to get involved in this ordeal. They hid it somewhere Dream will eventually find 100 years from now, if their plan works. As Dream's ruby hangs in the air, ready to turn a 1,000 dreams into reality, Desire mocks Dream by saying that the worst part of this victory is that he won't remember it. Only Dream will remember his defeat. And before Dream can retort, the ritual begins and everything is in chaos. Time flies, the ship is destroyed, Dream's clothes are ripped apart as anomalies across time that led to this new creation weave together. The Saculum is found by Daniel, it contorts and bends, and through the power of his father time, it finds Dream during the ritual. The Saculum was contorting due to the ritual that happened in the past when Daniel found it. The contorting Saculum slowly merges with Dream's ruby as she forces the ship into reality. The task is as easy as changing minds, as difficult as moving galaxies. But Dream gathers all the strength he has, and with one final push, he uses his energy and weaves with the dreams of the dreamers until he has nothing left to give. His clothes are ripped apart. His energy is sapped until he is nothing but bones. And the next second, Dream is plunging through the vastness of nothingness where no one can hear him scream. For a moment, Dream dies, but his dream of a new universe does not. And so, as existence weaves itself to exist, Dream wakes up, almost completely drained of all his energy. His holding onto his dream saved him, saved the universe, and for a fraction of a moment, the ship exists in a universe which it cannot be, the final remnant of something doomed and lost, until it doesn't. The next thing you know, Dream is woken up by Glory in a desolate realm, a realm where he commends Dream on a job well done. Glory tells him that the first circle is impressed that he managed to achieve this all on his own, but this time, Dream remembers that he had help. A cat helped him, as well as a little girl named Hope. Glory implies that Dream will eventually forget Hope even though he doesn't want to, and then tells him that though he fixed a disaster of his own making, he does not belong in this new creation. Dream stands up, wears his ruby, and then tells Glory that he's going back to the dreaming. He has responsibilities. Before Glory departs, he says, "Mind how you go," while Dream imagines time and night being proud of him for saving the entire creation. He uses his powers to summon his gear and then plunges off the desolate rock to return to dreaming. He is weak, and as he plunges, Roderick Burgess's words echo from across space and time and slowly begin to ensnare him. And though Dream fights the words, he is too weak to defy this trap, and so instead of dreaming, Dream falls into another black hole, another pit of darkness, which lands him in the waking world, in the basement of Roderick Burgess, trapped inside an occult prison. Epilogue. Meanwhile, while this was happening, Desire was visiting their twin Despair in their realm. Desire reveals to Despair that they finally managed to save the universe on the third try, because the first two times Dream was too stubborn to accept their help, and so on the third try, they decided to pose as Dream himself, to trick him into accepting help. They also revealed that they were the ones who put the desire to steal the pocket watch in Mad Hetty's mind, and so she stole it from him. Desire then reveals that they too wanted to save creation. They wanted to save it before Dream because desire is what keeps the creation going. It's what attracts atoms to each other, particles to each other, planets to suns, and beings to beings. Desire then begins to lament the fact that all of them are going to forget this soon. They then dream of how fulfilling it would be if they somehow managed to trick Dream into spilling some family blood, or what if the next vortex was one of the family members. Despair, however, has changed after this almost destruction because the world was full of despair, but it won't be anymore. Destiny's book has already begun rewriting itself. Desire comforts their twin, and the next thing you know, they both have forgotten what they were talking about, or whatever it was that Desire managed to save. Knowing not why they are dressed in a cat costume, Desire walks away with Despair nonchalantly.